Hi, I'm Tom from Sweet Maria's Coffee, and we decided to make a couple of videos that were direct responses to questions we got from our emailer. So one of the questions was, what do I do when my favorite coffee has run out? And first of all, this will happen to you because coffee is not like soap on a shelf and it's always there all year long. It's an agricultural product. It's not, a fresh product like peaches that's so seasonal that it's here and it's gone and that's it, unless you get them from Chile. But and it is a dried seed. You can store it for 6 months or 8 months with no effect to the harm to the flavor usually. But it will happen that you like, let's say, a coffee from Finca Genesis in Costa Rica, and you go back next time and it will be gone because it was a limited amount of coffee. The first thing, obviously, you could do is wait till next year, because we do work consistently. When we find a farm we really like Genesis, we work with them consistently every year, and we're going to have the Mendez family's coffee next year. So I wanted to give a couple tips about how to look at the reviews effectively and make some decisions about what you like. The first thing you need to do is, if you like a coffee, go back to the review and read it. Notice what sort of characterization descriptors used for the coffee. And I'd suggest also paying attention to a few of the scores. I'd pay attention to the acidity score. If it's 8 points, it's a fairly low acidity. If it's 8.5, it's moderate. And if it's getting up towards 9, it's a fairly acidic coffee. That's one thing that is a real indicator of taste preference. There's one more thing, which is I'm going to describe, which I probably haven't done before, which is this kind of big groupings or families of taste. And you can kind of say there's two sorts of coffees. On the one hand, there's very sweet and clean coffees that are usually wet processed coffees. You'll see that listed in the review. They're usually lighter body, and we'll use a lot of terms like transparent, clear, elegant, these sort of terms, which are difficult because you can't taste, that tastes like elegance. But it's a euphemism for something that means clean and sweet coffees. Now, sweet can also mean something else over here. Sweet is usually used with a term you'll see called rustic. Rustic sweetness. That a lot of times you'll see other terms around that, like earthy, foresty, herbal. This indicates another family of coffees that's generally, rustic is a great term to describe them. So we have sweet and clean, elegant coffees, and rustic. I think those are two real dividing lines in people's tastes. For example, Maria really doesn't like the rustic types of coffee. Those would include Sumatra mandolins with their really big body, really low acidity, and a lot of earthy notes, herbal notes, tobacco even, these kinds of flavors. She does like the cleaner and sweeter coffees. These would be the wet processed Central Americas, for example. They have moderate to higher acidity. They might have a lighter body, but they're very clean in the taste. You could also compare in other foods. You could say, for example, if you drank tea and you put white sugar in it, that would be the clean and sweet. If you had your English breakfast with that. If you had English breakfast, or let's say, and you throw some herbal infusion in there from the health food store, and you buy raw honey that still has some bees' wings floating around in it, and you put it in this and maybe a little kombucha, you'd have the rustic side of things. So I think that's actually a pretty good dividing line. One thing that you really cannot do that a lot of people want to do is look at the total score and say, if it's 95 points, I'm going to love this coffee. The fact is, if it's 95 points, but all the characteristics that you don't like, let's say you like that Sumatra, that low acidity and big body, kind of tarry and foresty and earthy, and then you go buy a Kenya that's 95 points, which is very acidic, has a lot of bright fruit flavors, kind of twist your tongue out flavors, you may hate it even more being a 95-point coffee. So you can't just look at total scores and say that's good, that's not good. You have to find out what those taste descriptors are that relate to coffees that you've had and liked. So I hope that helps a little bit. when you try to map out the flavor world of coffee, you can't just say, oh, I liked this wet process Ethiopia Yirgacheffe, so I'm going to love this Ethiopia Harar because it's from Ethiopia and it's just right next door. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way, but I hope looking at these flavor descriptors and trying to think about those two big families of taste, sweet and clean, rustic, sweet, earthy, that will be of some help to you. Thanks.